Thank you very much, and good afternoon to you all. I'm from the city of Birmingham in England, and the previous speaker referred to the Cricket World Cup, and I just hope that when India, or maybe New Zealand, or maybe Australia are winning the World Cup, you'll just remember who invented the game of cricket. But we have no other interest in it at all at the moment. So I've been the director of the Library of Birmingham. I finished, as our host indicated. I retired at the end of last month. Been the director for over 10 years now, in which time we've conceived and imagined and built and opened a brand new, very largest public library in Europe. And I wanted just to talk with you about some of the drivers and the inspiration behind the library, behind the building itself, but also behind the service and what we've achieved. And I'll do that through about 10 slides with just some images there. So I always start my presentation, I call my presentations always Future City, Future Library, because I firmly believe, and I think what Alison said entirely supports that, that any library service has to start from thinking about the city or the locality in which it's based, and to deliver the outcomes that are required by the citizens of that place. Birmingham as a city, it's a population of about 1 million people, which in UK terms makes it the second largest city in the country. It's a big European city, of course by South Asian standards it's not so large in population terms. Its origins very much as an industrial city. It has no real natural resources. It makes things. That's its reason for being there. The Industrial Revolution and an awful lot of inventions that drove the Industrial Revolution started in the city of Birmingham and its environment. And it had this name of the city of 1,000 trades to describe all the manufacturing base that went on there. But its population is a very diverse population. It's almost 50% now non-UK white origin. So it's a very diverse population. Only the city of Amsterdam in Europe has a more diverse population. And it's now the youngest major city in Europe as well. And for the library service, that is such a crucial element. If we are not succeeding in meeting the needs of children and young people, then we will not be succeeding at all. We must target our services towards the future success of our children. But Birmingham has, along with that population, some significant challenges that the library service needs to position itself to meet. Those include quite high levels of illiteracy, low levels of skills. There are jobs in the city, but they're not always going to the people who live there because they are not sufficiently skilled. They're not necessarily people who are good at getting a job, so the process of applying for and securing a job is not one that's familiar. Healthier lifestyles. Too many people who don't have healthy lifestyles, who don't have the quality of life that they should have in a developed country. And the library can make contributions to those agendas, also to those agendas of bringing together communities in a very diverse society, making people understand that the things that sometimes seem to divide us are actually the same things that bring us together, that we do have shared heritage and we have a lot to learn from each other. And the library is very deliberately set up to deliver those outcomes. I want to mention three key drivers that were the messages that we gave to our architect some 8 years ago now, when we were first briefing the design teams on what we wanted from our library, and three key drivers that have driven forward our service redesign. The first, and I think the most important of all for the architect to remember, is that the public library is public realm. It belongs to the people who use it. It doesn't belong to us as the organisation, as the institution. And that means that features like having a cafe, having Wi-Fi that works, having gardens, you can see the picture of the garden there, having meeting places for formal meetings is a really important function of the public library as a cultural and a community space. The second design principle was that we wanted the library to be welcoming and inclusive and accessible to everybody in the community. It needed to to invite you in, to say, come on, find out what we've got, come and explore, come and discover. Not a library for people who are already learned, but people who want to learn, and everybody should want to learn, of course. And the third driver was building on the idea of learning, was that learning is a journey. You never stop learning, and until the day we die, and maybe even beyond that, we're learning all the time. And you never arrive. So come and explore, come and find out, learn things that you didn't think you wanted to know. And that's been a guiding philosophy. How did we build a library that fitted to those principles? And down the bottom of that slide, some of the key things that we said, when we design a service, this must not be a traditional library service. This is not a traditional population in the city that we're serving. How do we inspire them? How do we create something different? And some of the features that we've tried to produce are an environment that is full of events. So we have almost 2,500 events that take place in our library in the course of each year. And those events may be music, it might be poetry, it might be drama, it might be a reading group, it might be a seminar on how to set up your own business. 2,500 events. Things are happening all the time. They're engaging. The second was the idea of co-production, that we actually want you, the members of the public, to make the library tick, to make it happen. So all those events are not always organised by the library. We hand over the spaces to community groups, to individual members of the public, and say, do something exciting in that space, make it interesting. Connect it to learning, but make it interesting. And this idea that learning doesn't just come from books, that learning comes from experience, and experience comes from other people. It comes from experiencing the event. It comes from a conversation with any one of us in this room. We will learn from each other. And the library is set up to create the sort of spaces and chance encounters that make learning so exciting and so vibrant an experience. It's an interesting statistic. We did, because there's been quite a lot of talk this morning already about books and reading. We have almost 1 million books in our library, plus a huge archive. We did a very large user survey in October last year, so just 6 months ago, and just 15% of our visitors come for the purposes of borrowing a book. 15. So you think about that, that's 85% of our visitors are coming for other reasons than to borrow a book. And that, I think, is both quite challenging when we think about how we design libraries and how we design our spaces, but I also find it quite comforting because for the future, of course, one day, it won't be tomorrow, it won't be next year, but the number of physical books that are published and produced as physical items and stored in libraries will reduce very, very significantly. And when that day comes, we have a model for a library service that will survive that and will flourish well beyond that. Community engagement was, as already been mentioned, Alison was very, very eloquent and powerful in what she was saying about that, and it is so, so important. This is a picture of a guy called Ian, who was one of our community ambassadors. We appointed quite early on in our project a number of people who would champion the library and ask communities to listen, not to what I'm saying as the director of the library, but listen to what they're saying. So ownership of the library, passion for the library being embedded in communities right from day one. And Ian's story is quite an interesting one because when I first met him, he was homeless. He lived on the streets, and he occasionally came into the library to keep warm, to read the newspaper. And he was one of a number of homeless people who were offered a job on the library project as a builder. And he did so well, he was promoted, he became a supervisor, and he now has a job, he has a skill, he has his own apartment, and he's actually a published poet as well. So he's our #1 success story for me, and that's what community engagement can do. 3 directions of travel that I wanted, or dimensions of the direction of travel that we've tried to take the library. Away from transactions, lending books and giving out information, towards transformation, asking that question, how do we deliver outcomes, how do we change people's lives? From deliverable carry now. Learning is a process that needs support and encouragement and direction, and that's where libraries have a key role to play. Knowledge is an outcome. We all know more, we understand more about the world, about ourselves. The story of the library, we opened in September 2013 after 6 years planning and building, and we chose Malala Yousafzai to open the library rather than a celebrity. Of course, in a way, she is now a celebrity. But she made a home in Birmingham after she was shot by the Taliban. She was treated in hospital there. She now lives and goes to school in the city. And it was important for us that she symbolised the library. She's symbolised the city. She's a young person of an ethnic minority background for the city of Birmingham, and also somebody who's a recent immigrant to the city. It's a hospitable city. It's always thrived on newcomers to the city bringing their own skills and talents. She also had the unintended consequence, no, it wasn't unintended really, but it took our publicity campaign, it took it worldwide. So lots of people had heard about the Library of Birmingham. Once Malala had spoken, nearly everybody had heard about it. So that was a good result. And the opening day did demonstrate for us that the library is still alive and well in the 21st century. A lot of people in England, in the UK, there's still a debate about where does the library go? Does it have a role in 21st century society? The fact that we had queues outside the library for hours, for days on end, was a great success story for us. It works. I'm not going to go into any sort of detail in these, but these children, heritage, reading, business, learning and health, these are the 6 areas of service that we focus our activity on. And perhaps if I explore one very briefly, and it's not going to be reading, because I think we sort of know what we do to encourage literacy and a love for reading. But in the area of business, it's important that we work as librarians to encourage economic growth, to help people equip themselves to get employment, to help them start up their own business, to encourage entrepreneurship and innovation and creativity in the economy. And where better than the library as a knowledge powerhouse to make that happen. Just some images that reflect the diversity of events that were organised in the library over the last years. As I say, there have been several thousand now. But the library is not a quiet place. It's a place of vibrant activity, of noise. People are attracted in there because there is lots happening. The lots happening extends to lots of children singing, or it extends to corporate dinners. We want to appeal to all sections in the community. I think I've probably exceeded my time. This final image is of our outside space, our amphitheatre performance space, and we have a black citizen of Birmingham. He's an opera singer. He's dressed as a Russian Cossack, and he's performing opera in the library. And hundreds of people have come to listen to that. It's an informal performance. We didn't advertise it. It just happened. That's the sort of surprise. That's the excitement that a library can bring to a community. Thanks very much for listening.